Hello everyone, it's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And this is the penultimate episode of my John Ford series, episode 79 of my journey through John Ford, with only a posthumous documentary to come. But this is his last feature film. And my wife, Jess, just couldn't get enough John Ford, so she begged me to have her come on to do this episode.
It's because you looked at me and said, it's your last one, probably, in the last one that I did.
I jinxed it.
He jinxed it.
So,
Look, he's not even sorry.
Jess is jumping in and filling in, and much appreciated.
Yay.
So thank you, Jess, for coming on.
It's good to be useful, Shane.
There you go. And for those who have not tuned into the show before, we have 3 segments. So we have coming attractions for December 20th, the weekend before Christmas. And then we'll be getting into 7 Women, the John Ford film, and phrasing. And then,
I was like, I can't not.
And then we have some recommendations for you. And I'm a professional, and I'm holding it together.
I'm obviously not. I'm doing neither.
So, for this weekend, we have 2 huge blockbusters with Mufasa, the Lion King, as well as Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And then we have some other big award season projects like The Brutalist, and we have The Room Next Door, and we even have a new French adaptation of a very classic story, which is what Jess picked for her most anticipated film, The Count of Monte Cristo. So, Jess, why'd you pick that one?
I feel really bad saying this. I'm a big fan of the sandwich. I would like to see what the namesake is all about.
Say sandwich?
Mm-hmm. Monte Cristo sandwich.
Have you read The Count of Monte Cristo?
I know nothing about The Count of Monte Cristo.
It's
aside
a tale
from the
of
sandwich.
Revenge.
I assumed it was some kind of swashbuckling.
Yes.
French, whatever. Big fan of French bullshit.
And it's V's favorite film.
Yes, that's why I picked it, not because of the sandwich. I tricked you all.
The one person I know who has seen it, Heath, loved it.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to checking it out.
I hope Heath is impressed with my choice.
It was not France's choice for international feature for
probably
the
wasn't
Oscars.
Horny enough or deathy enough.
It probably wasn't like auteur enough. But no, I'm excited about that film as well. But I'm like, a 2.5-hour Count of Monte Cristo film just isn't enough film for me. So I picked The Brutalist, which is 3 hours and 40 minutes.
Wow.
The trailer has impressive scale. This epic film of immigrant story starring Adrian Brody, who a lot of people are starting to get some buzz around for Best Actor. There's a really tough Best Actor race between Timothée Chalamet, take your pick, Dune, or A Complete Unknown.
I think Adrian Brody could beat Timothée Chalamet up.
But could they both beat Coleman Domingo up?
Oh, I don't know.
For Sing Sing. But...
Oh, maybe not.
And Felicity Jones and Guy Pearce and Alessandro Nivola are also in The Brutalist. It just... I am down for like a modern Once Upon a Time in America epic kind of American tale. Except not with mice. This one is much more serious.
That's an American tale, T-A-I-O.
Indeed. But there are some big films. I already made my personal list of things I still need to watch for 2024, and The Brutalist and The Count of Monte Cristo are both on there. I really wish that I could go to the IMAX pre-screenings of The Brutalist that are only happening in New York City and LA.
That would be a sensory nightmare for me. Almost 4 hours in the IMAX theater.
It'd be a lot.
I'd probably just cry.
Oh no. But
okay.
next episode we'll be diving into the Christmas releases, which is there's a widespread of different kinds of things, and a special shout out to Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which I was super excited for because Keanu Reeves and 2 Jim Carreys, and let's just say they all met the... They scratched that itch, for sure. I lost it at the end of Sonic the Hedgehog because of one Jim Carrey line.
So
Jess Conto.
beautiful. Shane was just crying.
I was tearing up because I was laughing so hard.
Weeping, like seeing a manifestation of the Virgin Mary. Just...
Oh my. And enough sacrilege for now. So let's segue into our feature film, which is Seven Women, from John Ford, from 1965, his last feature film, starring Anne Bancroft, who he described as the mistress of monotone and was not happy about her being cast by the studio in this film. Which, how dare you? I love Anne Bancroft.
But also, you got to appreciate the honesty. Good for him. What
a crotchety old man at that point. This was based off of the short story Chinese Finale by Nora Lofts, and this was, like I mentioned, the last feature of John Ford, scored by Elmer Bernstein. So, got some big name there. Originally adapted into an episode of Alcoa Theater, which was a series. Katharine Hepburn and Jennifer Jones were both considered for Dr. Cartwright, and Rosalind Russell lobbied for the role herself. And in the end, they cast somebody who then had a stroke. They had to replace them and got Anne Bancroft. And she swooped on in because Patricia Neal was originally cast in the role and only lasted 3 days before she unfortunately had a stroke.
Aww.
And yes, this is indeed the last film of John Ford. And let's see how 1965 it can be. In 1935, China, 7 dedicated missionary women tried to protect themselves from the advances of a barbaric Mongolian warlord and his cutthroat gang of warriors, and that could not possibly be a recipe for cultural insensitivity. And this did indeed make me just keep thinking about South Park.
Yep.
Goddamn Mongolians. That's exactly
it's
what...
about that level of...
That's exactly how much level of cultural sensitivity. Because you do have Anne Bancroft in this film. But more importantly, we have Mike Mazurki playing Tunga Khan. Yes.
Forgot about that part.
Serious yellow face. And Woody Strode, a large black man who was previously in a few John Ford films before this, as the lean Mongolian warrior. Because, you know, he's a person of color. He could just be Mongolian. But Jess, what were your general thoughts on Seven Women?
Aside from those casting choices, there was a lot in this that I did not expect. I mean, I expected racism, but like specifically the ending, I did not expect
went hard.
that. It really did. I mean, it just hit send.
Dr. Cartwright, let's just say, made the ultimate sacrifice, basically offering herself up as a sex concubine for Tunga Khan, and then straight up murking him with poison tea at the end. Just like, bam!
You know, we can respect a woman who does a murder-suicide for the goodness of her compatriots.
Yes, she did it for the other women. And that I'm like, that went hard at the end of this movie. And I thought Anne Bancroft did a really good job in this film in terms of being very different than every other woman in the film. Mm-hmm. Because she's supposed to be. Cartwright drinks.
She's a scrappy doctor.
Wears pants. She's a doctor who takes charge of things.
She hates sex or whatever.
And there's a lot of baggage. Like, some trauma that comes out about her character. And I think Bancroft sells that. She has this, like, tough persona. Mm. And Anne Bancroft was a really talented actor, and obviously between The Graduate and Miracle Worker, I think is the name of the film about Helen Keller.
Yeah.
That she was the doctor in.
Annie Sullivan.
And this is a really strong role for her. I think what's interesting is at least some of the other women in this film have some interesting arcs, because you have one of the women, who's kind of like the de facto leader of the bunch, who really hates Dr. Cartwright. And like, after Dr. Cartwright agrees to be this concubine, she's like, she's a hooer, and becomes like this religious zealot lady, judging her. It's like, excuse me, she's doing this for you. And I did appreciate even like how the film's exploring that judgment. Even when like a woman decides to do something like that for the sake of other people, it's still a level of judgment even from other women for sexualizing themselves.
And Bancroft has a great clap back for her though. Great response. And she's like, that's a sin. She's like, then pray for me. Like, oh, good for you. Oh. Good for you.
And then there's one particular woman who's pregnant who shouts everything.
Oh my god.
That character
was ancient. Just so old.
That character was unbearable.
Yeah, she's really annoying.
And you had Eddie Albert, who played her husband.
Look, if my husband took me very pregnant to a very rural area with no healthcare access,
just so that he could be a preacher.
Just so he can have some weird power trip because he's finally a preacher. Yep. I would probably also scream constantly. Just petty revenge. Just incomprehensible screaming.
And there's some really dark things that happen in this film. There's a lot of people that wind up dying.
Oh yeah.
And you even have like this whole entire Mongolian wrestling match between Woody Strode and Mazurki. And the two of them like battling for superiority. And Tunga Khan is just a big personality, and he's just playing him really big and obnoxious and not very sensitive. He really sticks out like a sore thumb in terms of his performance here.
Clearly not Mongolian.
Yes. And this film deals with like some underlying political issues in terms of like China and Mongolia at that time. And, you know, having like that undercurrent there, the perspective on missionary work. I feel like this film doesn't wholly tackle that concept very well, but like if you're paying attention and seeing like the details, it's like, yes, this was a bad idea. You shouldn't have been doing missionary work here. And there's some really intense moments. There's some thrilling moments. There's sparks of John Ford still being there from reading Pappy, the biography about him, that he definitely was like a shadow of himself at this point. And this film did not connect so well to the point where people just stopped sending him scripts. Like it was not like a choice that he retired. It was basically like nobody gave him any more work after this. And after 50 years of directing, it's like, it's kind of sad. I guess he didn't have that kind of leverage of, say, like a Ridley Scott or Scorsese or Spielberg, who are still going strong and doing whatever the hell they want. Scorsese can get Apple money and make a 3.5-hour film about the plight of the Osage people from the perspective of a white man. So, like, there you go. But I guess, Jess, were there any other things that stood out to you about Seven Women?
Nope. I had zoned in on those two things.
I think it's an interesting enough film. It's lean. It's 90 minutes. It's not, it's actually like an hour and 27 minutes. It's like 87 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It has some interesting ideas. It has some shocking twists and some intense moments. It's just, you can tell time is waning here for John Ford as a filmmaker. And it also really feels like a 60s movie, which I pointed out while we're watching it. It's like, because I've been watching John Ford films since like 1915, and you can see the progression of like, this is a different era of filmmaking, and this very much felt like I was watching a film from the 60s. And at the end of the day, this was a journey. And, wrapping up this journey of John Ford, which I'll be doing on my next episode, which I'm recording tomorrow with my buddy Adam, about Chesty, a tribute to a legend, which is basically just John Wayne talking at a camera for 25 minutes.
I'm so sad I missed that. It's just absolutely tragic.
Yes, Jess is very upset. But Jess, what would you like to recommend to everybody?
Speaking of Killers of the Flower
Yes.
Moon, Shane, I'm really enjoying... What?
I said segue.
Okay, yes, great segue. I thought you said set it up. I'm like, oh, I forget. I was supposed to set something up for you. All right. I'm really enjoying The Wager by...
David Gran?
David Gran, 2 N's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I enjoy shipwrecks.
Yes.
We love a good mutiny.
Mm-hmm.
There's some murder sprinkled in there. I can't remember the exact subtitle for it, but all of those words are in there somewhere. It's interesting. I'm learning a lot about British ships and the British Navy. I knew about stuff like press gangs.
In the Navy.
I knew a little bit about The Wager, but this goes like real deep into it. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying The Wager.
I'll have to read it or listen to it at some point. I did love Killers of the Flower Moon.
It moves pretty fast. It's not like you hear... I probably didn't sell it well. You hear, like, British naval history. Although I did say murder and mutiny and a shipwreck. Those things are pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even to that point in the book yet.
Well, there you go.
And this maybe will be a movie at some point. Perhaps.
Perhaps. Depending on if Scorsese gets there or
it's
not.
In the ether somewhere.
Yes. It's in some level of... like pre-production.
Yeah, but he makes it interesting.
Now, I have a couple of recommendations here. So one, new film, Flow. Gorgeous animated film about a cat, a capybara, a secretary bird, a dog, and a lemur. And it's a giant flood changes the landscape of the world, and they're stuck on this boat together. It is awe-inspiring. The scale, the music, it is incredible. It's under 90 minutes. It's just a awe-inspiring adventure with some interesting magical realism, if you might say, a part of it. Some fantastical elements. It's just something really special and just blew me away. It's one of my favorite films of the year, so check it out. Show it some love. And then I have Peter Bogdanovich's What's Up, Doc? A comedy that I'll be doing a classic review with my buddy Adam for Wasteland Talks. This movie was so damn funny. I laughed so much. I had such a great time.
At how funny it was, honestly.
And I never bought into Barbra Streisand as an actor. I do now.
She was an absolute menace in this movie.
Yeah, she was so charismatic, though, which is why she got away with it. And Ryan O'Neal was great. Madeline Kahn. Kenneth Mars. You're doing more German. Really
Hungarian, maybe?
He does a lot of... he does a lot of, like Northern or Eastern European-ness. Whether it's the producers or Young Frankenstein. It's just so much fun. It's crazy. It's zany. It's slapstick.
There's some really great gags.
Yes.
Honestly, like, I was
that mirror
shocked at how funny it was.
Yes, they did some amazing setup and Yep, exactly. And one film of mine that I rewatched, which was for our holiday movie marathon, was Trading Places, which is also hilarious. And also... interesting
commentary on the rich now.
Yes. Eat the rich.
Not exactly topical, but, adjacent to...
Eddie Murphy is unbelievable.
He's great.
And Don Amici and Ralph Bellamy are so great at these crotchety old men. Love Jamie Lee Curtis. Dan Aykroyd does a fine job. Denholm Elliott, too, who's the butler. Just the whole cast is great. It's hilarious.
It takes place in Philly.
Yeah, it has some fun cameos from like Al Franken and Jim Belushi.
In the city of Philadelphia.
Yes, in the city of Philadelphia. And it's just so much fun. And yes, there's some things that have not aged very well.
Yeah.
But It's a comedy from the early 80s, so I'm not surprised. But it's still hilarious and has some incredible performances, and Eddie Murphy is just absolutely electric, so would recommend. But that
He's
is
young, too.
Yes, he's like 23 years old.
Yeah, I was like, oh, man.
But that's a wrap for another episode of Welcome to the Wasteland. We're almost done 2020 Ford in this year and a half journey of John Ford cinema, and then I'll be moving on to Wes Anderson, which has more symmetry and color. But Jess, thank you so much. This is the last time you will be on for John Ford, so thank you so much, as always.
You're welcome.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.